Hello everyone and welcome to episode 33 of Suplexes and Microphones. This is a very special episode. We're calling it the Exit Interview. I'm Joe, that's Nate, and sitting between us is the former booker of Viral Pro Wrestling, former as of just maybe 12 hours ago.
Yep.
And former wrestler, the host of Entertainment Evolved.
That's it. That's me.
And a whole lot of other stuff. The guy that introduced me to Dragon Con and gets us backstage from time to time, so on and so forth. One of our closest friends, James Caleb Kitchens.
In the flesh. I'm happy to be here, guys.
And you've been a host on our show before when one of us couldn't be here.
Yeah, I filled in.
The official third member of Suplexes.
Yeah.
And I want to say, when those issues arose where Nate couldn't be there, I couldn't be there, I think Nate's words were, "Yeah, he's the only one I trust, like with our product." So
exactly right.
that is a glowing review from Nate. He doesn't trust anybody.
Right,
So.
DTA
That's
all
right.
day.
So, we're going to talk about a lot today, and I think you maybe wanted to give a disclaimer.
Yeah. So any of the opinions that I give here are just that. It's my opinions. I don't want to get these guys in any trouble with anyone. So anything I say here is my opinion and my opinion only, and it is not the opinion of Suplexes and Microphones as an entity. Because as we all know, I like to run my mouth a bit, but I'm going to be completely honest here today. So if I bury somebody, I feel like they deserve to be buried, and if I give somebody their flowers, they earn those too. So.
And with that said, we do have a lot to talk about and cover here. This may end up being 2 episodes, so if you get to the end, just be sure to make sure there's not part 2, episode 34 it may be. But I'm going to kick us off here. We always get into prior gimmicks. Last night, you came out as the volatile one. That was on your actual jersey.
Yep.
And, I know where that came from. We don't have to touch on that.
Not yet.
But let's talk about some prior gimmicks. I know specifically about Jason Gold, right?
Yes.
So let's talk about that and anything else that you've used previously as a wrestler. Let's start there.
So the first gimmick that I had, we'll go down the line. There's only a few of these. The first gimmick that I had was the Professor, and so I used to do. This was like back in the backyard wrestling days / like the small gyms or armories or whatever, where you'd have like 10, 20 people show up, and so that whole thing, I used to do a segment called the Professor's Classroom. So it was just like any of the interview segments that you have, like that Carlito or the Miz or anybody like that would do, and or Roddy Piper, obviously the most famous one that all the others are based off of.
Right.
And I would invite somebody out onto the classroom, and then they would either they would leave me laying there, or I'd leave them laying there. You know how these things go. When I actually got professionally trained, the guys that trained me were kind of like, well, this doesn't really have a whole lot of layers to it. So the idea was that I would be the scholar, David Yale. And so the whole idea was that I had gone to Yale, and I ended up, moved back to like Podunk, Georgia, and I would come out and tell all these rednecks how dumb they are, and of course it got over really well. I used to have the gimmicked diploma, so I'd have a little diploma with a lead pipe rolled up in it. I'd hit my opponent with it and then pull the pipe out and show the audience.
Nice.
That got over really well. I did that for many years, and then once I kind of got tired of doing that, I took a little break from being in the ring, and I said I want to try my hand at kind of being a babyface. My good friend Oz Knight had started up a promotion, and he wanted me to come out there and work for him. This was for RCW. I can't really remember what town it was in.
Carolina?
No, it was somewhere in like South Georgia, actual South Georgia, like the real South Georgia.
Not East Georgia.
Not East Georgia.
Not Augusta area, CSRA.
Yeah, not everywhere outside of the Metro Atlanta area, also known as South Georgia, like the actual Southern Georgia.
Right.
And so I did that gimmick for a while, and this was like a white meat baby face kind of thing. I would come out to the Entourage theme. And that's actually where Jason Gold came from, is Ari Gold, the character on that show. And I would have the shades on, and I'd give them to a little kid in the audience, just cheese it up, and kind of did this, just like I said, absolute white meat baby face gimmick. So I did that for a while. Went back to David Yale for a bit, Flatline Pro when I needed to be a heel. And this was sort of like I managed, I was doing a gimmick kind of where I was like, Daniel Main was like the GM and I was his underling. Kind of like the coach did for a little while, or Baron Corbin, or any of those kind of characters have done that sort of role. So I went back to David Yale for that, and I wrestled a few times there as that gimmick. In Viral though, I just have been me. Have just been James Caleb Kitchens, and eventually the Volatile one came out of that.
Yeah. Okay. So, real quick before Nate asks his question in regards to booking, are you done wrestling?
Yes, I fully intend, and this happens, in the wrestling business. You never say never. I've said it a few times, and a lot of guys have said it and come back. But I fully intend, especially the way I feel today, for last night to be my last match. Because I'll be honest, a lot of people really enjoyed it. I think it's one of the best matches I've ever had. It's definitely one of the most special matches to me in my career. To be able to come back and do that after 5 years of not being in the ring, to be able to come back and put that performance on, I think I'm just, if I try it again, it's gonna be like if you've seen the Last Ride documentary, it's gonna be like Undertaker. He like was chasing that him and Shawn match for like the rest of his career, basically. And I just don't want to be in that position. So last night, that's the swan song.
Okay.
As far as I'm concerned.
We may talk a little bit about that match again in a minute.
Good. Okay. So you mentioned you're a booker for Viral, and I know you did booking for Flatline as well, maybe some other companies. But so most people watch wrestling, they're like, "Hey, I want to be a wrestler." So what made you want to be more the booker, the backstage kind of creative process? How did you get to want to do that?
Well, originally I did have that idea of I want to be a wrestler, because that's what everybody, when you're a kid, you fall in love with the wrestlers.
Right.
It's only as an adult that you're like, oh man, that guy's great on commentary, or this guy's a great character, or stuff like that. As a little kid, you look at them like superheroes in a comic book or a movie or something. So yeah, I wanted to get into wrestling. DDP was like my favorite wrestler as a kid. So there was a lot of like sort of his mannerisms or moveset that I wanted to incorporate into mine. But as time went on, I started to realize I have really great ideas for this business. I have a good mind for this business. I don't exactly have the body for this business. Definitely not then. I mean, I probably trained harder for my match yesterday than I have any match ever. So I enjoyed the physical aspects of it, but I started to realize, look, my mind would be a better asset to this business than my body. So I wanted to go in that direction. I liked playing that kind of like on-screen character too. There's the kind of like management position, heel, or being an actual manager.
Have authority figure.
Yeah, that sort of thing. I was good at it, and then I really like the production aspects of wrestling too. So production value 10 years ago, when Flatline Pro was a thing, was non-existent on the Georgia scene, or really a lot of the Southeast. So production value is one of those things that they had head and shoulders above everybody else, and that really it just kind of gradually pulled me further and further in that direction.
So let's talk a little bit about the booking process, making contacts, finding new wrestlers, coming up with storylines. I'm sure it's a lot easier now with YouTube and social media to share videos. Back in the day, you had to mail a VHS tape to a promotion, that kind of a thing. So let's talk about that a little bit. Just make contacts, like storylines. Let's talk about difficulties you might run into, that kind of thing.
I prefer to scout in person. If you look at it, I would say that I go to probably more shows than any booker in the state. I may be wrong on that. I don't know every booker in the state. There might be somebody that does a lot of traveling too. But I go to a lot of shows, and I like to see talent in person. I like to see and feel how they work the room, and get that like charisma factor off of them, and you just lose a lot of that through watching it on YouTube. Now, if somebody sends me a match and it's 20 minutes long, and they're like, "Hey, here's my resume, here's some footage," I might watch it. If they send me a highlight reel, I'll definitely look at that. And you can gauge their athleticism from that. But if you see somebody in person, you can get the whole package.
Right.
And I am a huge believer in that starts the moment your music hits, right? So does your music tell me anything about your character, right? You have a very little window of time that you can explain who you are to the audience. And that's something where if I'm going to bring you in and nobody's ever seen you before, you've got to have that ability, right? So that's how I prefer to make contacts with talent, is preferably in person. If there's a lot of people like kind of raving about somebody, then I'll go and check them out myself. As far as booking process, man, I prefer to do what I call booking in reverse. So you kind of start with, okay, this is a moment I want to create. This is the payoff I want to happen. And then you kind of build backwards from that. So, for instance, with Flatline used to run every month, right? And we had 2 big shows a year. We had Redemption in September, and we had March of Champions in March. That was like the WrestleMania, right? So what we would do is, after March of Champions in March, we would sit down and say, okay, this is what we want the September super card to be, and these are the storylines we want to pay off, these are the angles we want, and then we would book backwards from that. Okay, well, if we want this paid off, we have to build it here. Viral is very similar. With Viral, it's kind of done in, I'd say, smaller chunks than that, because Viral runs 6 to 8 times a year, depending on the year and whether there's a plague,
Yeah.
So with Viral, a lot of that, beginning of the year, we start talking about, this is what we want for Infection. That's usually a big show. December is usually a big show. So it's like, can we set up something in Infection we can pay off in December? Can we set up something in June we can pay off in Infection? So it's the same process, but it's in smaller chunks, because you have to be able to tell a story now also, not just during the show, but also with like video packages and things like that, social media. So those are the tools we use now, whereas Flatline, we would put some stuff on social media. We had some of those tools, but it wasn't to the point that it is today.
Well, I know I've been to shows with you, and as soon as we walk in the door, first thing you say, I'm just here to watch this guy. I'm here to scout. So I've actually seen you do those things and make those contacts. It's pretty interesting, because as a fan, you go in one thing, but you're a fan too still, but you have an agenda, and it's kind of neat, because I've seen you do that at shows.
Yeah, if I'm at a wrestling show, I'm scouting one way or the other.
Yeah.
It's either, hey, this guy's fantastic, let's never consider this person. I mean, it's one way or the other. I thankfully can still watch wrestling as a fan, and enjoy it, but if I go to a live indie show, I'm scouting always. I mean, and that doesn't mean I can't enjoy the show. I mean, WrestleCade, for instance, I was scouting there, but I had a blast, at that. But I think any booker or promoter, if you go to somebody else's show, you should always be on the lookout for new talent you can bring in.
Right. So, what are some challenges that you would say you faced? I guess beyond injuries and or people no showing, what are some other things you faced?
Well, and those are big ones too, especially on the indies, because like I said, when you're doing that reverse booking, where you're starting at the payoff, it's hard to anticipate the bumps along the road. So it's like, okay, well, let's say for instance we've got a show in April, and we want to start an angle, and we want to have it evolve in June, and then do a payoff in August, right? Well, let's say one of the people in the angle can't be there in June. What do you do then? You have to, okay, well, all right, we need to film something with this person. We need to catch up with them and film something with them to fill that gap in. Okay, well, what is the other person going to do at the show? So that is a huge one. And the rest of it's just like is business. It's like can we financially put on the show that we want, right? I mean, is it in the budget? And then you have the typical wrestling stuff. You have egos. You have people that that say, hey, this doesn't make sense to me. I want to do this instead. And sometimes that's very valid. I've always tried to be very open. Like, oh, if you got another idea, I'm completely open to it, because I think most of the talent that we work with, they're very good. Most of them are experienced. They know their character. They've been doing this a long time. So I'm always, open to incorporate what they might have in mind. John Davis is like a great example of that. Like 9 times out of 10, if that guy comes to me with an idea, it's probably better than what we were originally going to go with. So I don't consider that a bump in the road necessarily, but it's just an example of different things that can throw you off course. So especially in indie wrestling, you have to always be prepared to pivot.
Well, speaking of that, this isn't on here, but hearing what you said, and I've heard you compliment John Davis before. Tell me, in your booking career, who has come to you with the worst idea or angle that you've ever heard of that you just said absolutely not? What was that about?
Oh man,
I'm sure there's several, but
if I'm being completely, I have, and I mean this in jest, okay? I have shot down like 150 Wade Adams ideas over just the course of years. I love you, Wade, but there's times. The thing about Wade is he is a genius, right? But what it comes down to, and I'm sure this might come back up, is what can you convey to a wrestling audience? And in particular, like a Thompson, Georgia wrestling audience. What can you convey to them?
Right.
So it's about taking an idea. If the idea is too complex, then it's a bad idea if you can't convey it. And so that's where that's come in. As far as just like a terrible angle. There have been a few over the years where it's just like you're just coming to me with ideas about how to put yourself over. Brandon Parker back in the day was kind of notorious for that. Just people who like, hey, I got an idea. Does it involve you? Does it involve you doing something cool? Okay, all right, let's hear it.
Put the belt on me.
Yeah, yeah.
Bob Holly classic.
Yeah, there's not really. I will say though, there's not really a lot of politicking around that sort of thing. At least not with the folks that I work with. Mm-hmm. But I specifically try to not work with those folks. So yeah, I mean that's just kind of how it turns out.
Got you. Well, you have the shirt on, so let's talk about the big fight last night. Josh Hancock, owner of All Pro Wrestling, James Caleb Kitchens, the manager of the Unknown, and behind the scenes, the man that's booking everything. And this is the fight for the company.
We sold out of these, by the way.
That's awesome.
They're gone. Yeah,
that's
sold
awesome.
every one of them.
I know you were doing some training. Tell us a little bit about that, and tell us a little bit about your thoughts going into this. With Hancock was a cage fighter. I mean, a lot of people were asking questions last night, and I had to tell him, yes, Google it. He actually used to fight in the cage.
Legit.
So you're having to kind of work with a guy that's used to, I mean, it was a decade ago, but he's used to throwing real kicks and punches and making that work, like you just said, for the wrestling audience. So let's talk about that. I don't want to spend too long on it because people will be able to see the match at
right.
SOS Custom Network and other things. But tell us about like training for that and working with him and everything leading to last night, because I mean, you were talking about probably your favorite match that you've worked.
It's definitely up there. So right after the October show, I really started training hard. And I don't want to go into like specific, like this is what I'm dieting, but just eating clean, eating a lot of reducing the amount of carbs I take in, cutting out sugar, I ate a lot of salads, I ate a lot of chicken. And I've lost 24 pounds.
Wow.
Although between sushi today and whatever we're going to eat after this, I'll probably put a few of those back on before Tuesday. But that being said, I was very happy with it. I plan to continue to try to shed the weight off because I'm used to the diet now, so might as well continue to do it just for my personal benefit. Mm-hmm. I thought I was going to be in terrible shape. I was really worried about it. Like it was like every day I'd be like, man, I don't feel like I could go have a cage fight right now.
Feel like you hadn't done enough.
I should go to the gym. It's like, I haven't done enough. And even to the last day, I was like doing DDP yoga like at my mom's house the day before the show, just like, I got to keep myself limber or whatever. And honestly, today I feel pretty good. usually I feel worse than I feel today after we do a show and I don't wrestle. So obviously it's paying off.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, even after the show, I didn't think I was going to be able to. I figured I'd be really sluggish tearing down, but I was able to tear down and everything pretty well. A little stiff today, but there was a lot of challenges going into this match because you have Hancock, who has never had a wrestling match before, never been in any kind of staged fight. Hopefully that wasn't a spoiler for anybody. If you're watching this, you probably know wrestling stage. So you've got a guy who has the instincts of a cage fighter, and the majority of his victories are by TKO. So it's like, this guy can really knock me out if he wants to.
Right.
And that almost happened. I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but I got a pretty gnarly lip today. So there's that. Hancock was really nervous about the fight. We went over the match a lot of times. Huge credit to referee Chris Wiggins. He's the only guy I wanted in there. I trust him, and he was a huge asset to that match. He deserves, I honestly think, just as much credit as myself or Hancock deserve for that. Referees don't get enough credit, and he did an incredible job with that. And he went over the match with us a couple times. We got input from a couple different people. And when we actually got in the ring, I thought the reactions from the crowd were great. It was a long show. It was an 8-match card, which, as you've seen me 100 times be like, oh my God, if we ever book another 8-match card. And technically it was a 9-match card because John Davis and Blanco
came out right.
Yeah, so it's very difficult, even for like AEW, WWE, to keep an audience that engaged for that amount of time. And I think I'd say 6 or 7 out of the 8 matches last night, crowd was fully into, and that is hard to do. So I was concerned about that, and there's just a lot of factors. It's like, okay, can I walk this guy who's never had a wrestling match through a wrestling match? Make sure he doesn't get in the zone, and go for blood and actually harm me. Are we both going to get out of there safe? Right. And it wasn't just me either. It's like, I was doing wrestling moves. He doesn't have any experience with how to take moves, and
right.
he's taken a couple bumps, but it's like, I hit him with the pedigree during the match. That used to be my finish. That's dangerous. If you tuck your head, then you can end up hurt. So, it was about making sure that everybody was safe, number one. Number two, make sure the match is good and gets a good reaction. I gig during the match. If you're not familiar with that term, that's where a wrestler, cuts himself so they can get color or bleed. And so you not only are in this dangerous situation, but you also have a razor blade in your wrist tape. And so it's like that thing comes out or pokes through into you or whatever at the wrong moment. So yeah, I was worried going into it. There was a lot of concern, but I don't think that match could have turned out any better. I'm just incredibly pleased with it.
You got some color the hard way too, though.
Yeah.
That you were just.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, so the plan was for me to get busted open by the elbow near the end, but I was bleeding from my lip and my nose well before that happened. As a matter of fact, like 15-20 seconds after the bell rang, I caught a right hook. Or it might have been a left hook. I don't know. My memory of it is not great. Right here, and I went down, and we had planned it that way. And the reaction of the crowd, like all the air just like got sucked out of the room because people are thinking, did they just spend 20 minutes putting this cage up? It was like 12 minutes. Credit to Bob Keller's team. They threw that cage up.
Yeah.
Did they just spend 12 minutes putting this cage up? To have a 20-second match. And then I got back up, and the crowd, came back, and we just kind of went into the motions from there. Josh followed along really well, and he brought the realism to it. He looked good out there. I brought the wrestling experience to it, the heel tactics, the dirty tactics. I was pulling everything out of the playbook. Raking the eyes, dragging them across the ropes, biting them on the head. And it was just it was storytelling, man. There wasn't a single flip in that match. It was it's like I said to somebody in the back. I said, we don't have athleticism to give them, so we're just going to give them violence. and that's what they wanted anyway. So.
Right. Okay. Well, because that match was good, because the whole card was good, there's been some whispers about that being a potential award-winning show.
What awards?
So that's what I want to talk to you about. Let's talk about something that is hotly debated in Georgia and other places. The Georgia Wrestling History Awards. I think you might have some feelings about how that works and doesn't work. So go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, you're not. All right, so yeah, I mean, you're not gonna see me publicly like pandering for any of these awards. I didn't make nominations. I know several other people that didn't make nominations. You know, I think if somebody wants to pat certain talents on the back and tell them that, you know, hey, they're doing a good job or whatever, that's fine. Unfortunately, there's a lot of talent out there that strictly believes that those awards are like a peer vote, right? Like it's like, oh, only wrestlers are voting on this process. It's completely, you know, cut and dry, but it really isn't. I think that those awards have been devalued over the years. I think once upon a time they probably meant something, right? But you know, for example, let's take the Oscars or the Emmys or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The Oscars don't need a spokesperson to talk about how important they are all year. You know, constantly want to remind you guys these awards are important. They don't need that because people know they're important. To hell with the Oscars too, by the way. I mean, let's put it this way. Marvel's never won an Oscar for any of their movies. So as Disney is sitting there counting their billions of dollars in box office cash, do you think that bothers them?
Right.
It doesn't. I think those awards have become a joke. I mean, they've always really been a joke, but people have started to now finally realize that there's considerable problems with the process. For example, Flatline Pro, I mean, all the metrics are constantly changing for that, right? For whatever reason, for what makes a promotion of the year a show of the year. You take Flatline Pro, right? If you want to talk numbers as far as people that drew, Flatline was drawing 250, 300, several times a year they did 400. Every single show, every month. High production value, best production value in the state, right? Never won anything. I think maybe were nominated one time for something. And it was probably Jonathan Feltner winning announcer of the year. You know, and it's like, so what is that? Is it the Greater Atlanta Awards? Because people outside of Metro Atlanta don't really have any chance of winning that stuff. And then today, you know, in more recent history, you have the gatekeeping of it, right? A lot of people in the wrestling industry, or wrestling business, in Georgia wrestling rather, view it as like Stephen Platinum is gatekeeping those awards. Do I feel that way? I don't know, but I think there's valid criticism there. And I've talked to people who are very involved in the process that say that that is how it works. And he's using it to make money. I mean, let's just be very upfront and honest about that. There's a reason that this is the guy that's barking the loudest about, hey, this stuff is really, really important, guys. It's because that's his gatekeeping of those awards is his relevance to wrestling now. And, I mean, that's just how it is. So, and by that metric, it devalues those awards. And I think another part of that is that, you know, as of last year, they're now the Goodman Awards. So you take a guy like Larry Goodman, who is like universally liked and respected. I have a lot of respect for Larry. I talked to him last night. Never have anything but good conversations with him. I go to a lot of shows. I see him there. Utmost respect for Larry. So you're taking this award process and you tie it to him, which is an honor to him, I'm sure. But now it's like, well, if you're critical of this process, you're critical of Larry Goodman.
Right.
So you're taking something where it's like, well, I'm going to slant this way, but you can't be critical of it because if you are, then it's against Larry. And everyone likes Larry.
Right.
You know, so you can't do that. So it's like they're being devalued by Platinum and his involvement in them, and certain financial contributions that are being made with the anticipation of those awards. And so, you know, I'm not the one devaluing them. It's being done by them. And more people are saying, hey, this is not a big deal. Nobody cares about this. I've heard a lot of talk about, you know, about Southern Honor. You know, they cleaned house last 2 years. If they don't win Promotion of the Year, and I'm not saying they aren't or that they are, I can promise you that Gary and Dylan will not lose a single minute of sleep over it. They're drawing great crowds. They're doing great. I've been to several of their shows this year. It's a phenomenal product. I mean, I don't think anybody in the wrestling business is losing any sleep over these, except for maybe some of the talent. Unfortunately, I think the talent holds them in way too high of a regard.
So let's talk a little bit about the current state of indie wrestling. So how do you think things are kind of going overall?
Well, it's been very interesting, I'd say 5-6 years, because what happened around the, I'd say, you know, 2005 to 2017 time frame, you had this kind of upward momentum in the indies. So you had, you know, Ring of Honor going strong. You had TNA, you know, was still going pretty well. You had NXT, right? So WWE was branching out and doing all sorts of stuff. They were doing the was it the Mae Young Classic? Was that the women's tournament? They were doing the Cruiserweight Classic, NXT 205. So you had all these indie guys all at once kind of got signed. New Japan was really taking off around then. And then, you know, around 2 years ago, you had AEW kind of come up out of nowhere too. So you had all this upward momentum, but now, interestingly enough, you have the opposite occurring. So you have all this downward momentum because like every single person that signed an ROH contract, right? Mm-hmm. Those are all gone. Those people are all available now in the indies. Most of the Impact roster, not exclusive, available in the indies. Huge portion of the AEW roster, you know, can be booked on the indies. So you have now, and WWE, of course, released 150 talents over the last, I think, year and a half. Mm-hmm. So you have all these guys that have been to the top of the mountain, and now, you know, they're available on the indies. So I think you have the sort of this influx of talent coming back down to the indies, and you know there are a lot of people now who, you know, you can make good money on the indies if you're good at it, right? Mm-hmm. And not just in the wrestling sense, but in the business sense. So it's going to be interesting how it evolves over the next couple of years because there's so much talent out there now to be had, and I think that's it's going to be interesting to see how that goes because when a lot of people got brought up, there was like a vacuum there for a while. There was just this void that needed to be filled. You know, when you had guys like Cedric Alexander, you know, got called up, big star in the Southeast. Anthony Henry, he was at Viral last night. You know, his presence in the Southeast was definitely missed. You know, while he was in NXT. So there's a lot of that where you've got these, you know, stars who are now better than they were when they left. They were at the top of their game when they left, enough to get signed. They've got signed and they've learned even more, and now they're back. So there's so much talent out there. It does worry me in regards to like wrestling schools. Something that Heath Mulligan from Double Dropkick Show, shout out to Heath, has talked about extensively is what's the finishing school for wrestling? Like what's like the secondary wrestling school? Because there are a lot of places out there that are very good at teaching like the basics and how to get started in the wrestling industry, but there's not a lot of places that are teaching like promos and how to like conduct your business and how to get bookings and how to stand out. That last one might even be the most important part. And you know, a lot of that might be stuff that you have to learn, you know, by trade, but it's hard to do that if you can't get booked on shows where there are people who can teach you that, right? So if your skill set is at a certain place and you can only get booked on shows that are hiring other people with that skill set level, you can't learn and grow that way. you've got to be on shows that have talented, people that know what they're doing on it to be able to learn anything. Because if you're at a certain level and you're only around other people at that level, you're not getting good input. Yeah, you're getting either the same input that you already have or worse, typically.
All right, good. Let's go back to talk about your history of booking a little bit with Viral Pro. I know you started when the promotion started in 2016. You took a little time off in the middle there, but then came back, until, like Joe said, 12 and a half hours ago. So, if we're staying exact. What are some of your favorite moments and angles in Viral Pro that you were a part of?
In that first run, I was like a face general manager when we first started in 2016. And we did 3 shows 2016. We did August, October, and December. And that December show was meant to be my exit. And I was like completely gone from wrestling. I was going to leave it behind. It didn't turn out that way. But we had James Drake and Hex in a street fight at that show. And I really loved that angle. I really loved the build to that. So I was a huge fan of that. Mikey Galeno did the send-off angle with me, which was very important because I got to see him break into wrestling and sort of grow into what he's doing. And so that was a really emotional night for both of us. Was just me and him being able to like be across from the ring from each other, have that promo segment, do the whole deal where he like turned on me to generate heat for the angle. Obviously, after the comeback, we did a brief throwback to the Rapture from Flatline. So we had Anthony Henry come in and he challenged Hex for the title at that point in time, and that kind of led into me coming back into the company. Is like kind of I brought Henry back in, was kind of the deal. That was an amazing angle. Everything with the Unknown is probably my absolute favorite. Anything that we did with Darius Lockhart, that guy is amazingly talented. You talk about, we talked about the awards a little bit earlier. You look at it, nobody that's ever won like Georgia Wrestler of the Year has ever been to the top, right? Best example is like Logan Creed is in MLW, right? And that's the best example. But like Anthony Henry, been in NXT, never won any of that stuff. Darius Lockhart is going to be another one. He's in the NWA now, doing an amazing job. He's in the finals for the junior heavyweight title. So proud of that guy. Anytime getting to be his manager is probably one of the best things about the entire time I was in wrestling, because I don't know if I respect anybody in wrestling more than I respect Darius Lockhart. I mean, just from on every level, professionalism, talent, just as a person across the board. So that's the top. This angle I did with Josh was fun. I do have to admit, because we planned this out. We booked the cage match like 2 years ago before COVID. That was going to be a thing. And so when we came back from COVID, it was like, okay, we have to, now how do we get back to where, we wanted that payoff to be,
So talk a little bit about the angles that did not work.
Oh, okay.
That would be good, but it's like, this kind of stinker, so
Well, and some of them turned around. So for instance, we had, before the pandemic, we were trying to kind of do something with Joe Black and Saeed, and there were just scheduling issues like we talked about earlier, where like, okay, this person can't make this show, this person can't make this show, and it was like we had a hard time getting both of them there at the same time, in order to actually progress it. So that was one example. We did a few things where we would have like a couple of tag team angles, right? Like when Monster Squad first won, they were the very first VPW tag team champions, and then the next show they weren't there. They couldn't be there. So it was like, okay, you're the very first tag champs, and then the next show you're not there, and then the following show after that they lost the belts to the Rock and Roll Express. Well, Rock and Roll Express, we couldn't really control when we could get them because that's a very limited thing. You know, they're in high demand even now. So it was like, well, we got Rock and Roll Express coming in. We're trying to put the titles on them and make this big splash and do this, you know, kind of make headlines, which we did. We were in international dirt sheets everywhere. I mean, it was like Rock and Roll Express wins Viral Pro Tag Team titles. We were on some like Japanese dirt sheets. You know, it got our name out there, which is what we needed at the time. So it was like they won the tag belts, weren't there the next show, and then the next show they lose them. And so it's like this didn't go anywhere. Thankfully, they were able to, you know, come back and win them again. But then COVID happened, right? So then they had to vacate them. So it's like they kind of had the second run was good, but the first one, you know, it got completely botched, and that wasn't really their fault. You know, it just kind of turned out that way. So sometimes you can salvage it, sometimes you can't.
So what do you think what do you think it takes to get over the current wrestling world? So I know there's a lot of categories, requirements. You know, you have to have a look. Always heard Vince McMahon referred to as, you know, turning heads in the airport kind of appearance. But so you have to have wrestling skill, I'm sure. I won't answer the question for you. I'm just kind of leading up to it. But
sure.
You know, being able to talk on the mic, I know that's important as well, getting over the fans. So what do you think it takes to get over? What's most important out of those things I mentioned? What about the above?
I'm gonna put wrestling skill down further towards the bottom, and proof of that, you can go and watch my match from last night.
Yep.
But neither one of us, I mean, would even be considered in that. But we told a story, you know, and we couldn't do that every month. You know, you had to build that. But the thing is, I would say that charisma, the it factor, is the most important. And going right along with that is the ability to stand out. I told a story last night. I've been on to a wrestling show to scout before where every single person on the card is wearing trunks, boots. You can't tell anybody apart. Even if you know the people, everything just mixes together. After a while, it's like, all these guys look the same to me. It doesn't matter who they are or what kind of features they have. If they're all dressed the same. And that comes from, in certain areas, it's like, if you're not going to wear trunks and boots, that's not professional. You know, if you come out in singlet or pants or tights or whatever, thankfully you don't have a lot of that now. But I'd say the most important thing on the card is to stand out. Tim, T-I-M, the Infinite Man, or formerly Timmy Lou Retton, perfect example of that. You see that guy, he always stands out on the card. His gear is always different from everybody else's. It's always flashy. It always looks really professional.
International superstars, they probably have the best looking gear, I think.
Always, yeah. I mean, they have more gear than I have clothes, I think. Yeah. They always stand out on any card they're in, and they have that charisma factor too. So that's definitely number one. Knowing your audience is easily number two, right? I see this happen with guys all the time where they go to a certain promotion and they'll have a gimmick or a spot or something and it gets over super well. Oh, well, I'm gonna start doing that everywhere. Well, then you bring it over here and nothing, you know, it doesn't get over at all. So you have to have that ability to adapt to whatever audience you're in front of. You've got to be able to know your audience. I think that is probably the most missed thing that I see talent do, is not understanding where they are and what kind of audience they're in front of. And if you work in the same places all the time, you really should develop that. Because I'm gonna tell you now, the major promotions do it. When AEW goes to Chicago, CM Punk is doing something that would lend itself to them being in Chicago. When they came to Atlanta, they had Bryan Danielson face Allen Angels. He's from Atlanta. People in this area know who he is. The big promotions are doing it. There's a reason for that. It's really, really important. So that's an easy number two, is knowing your audience. And yeah, I mean, you need to have some mic skills and some wrestling skills, but the way that, as I said earlier, the amount and the level of talent that there is now, that just gets you in the door, having the wrestling skills and the mic skills. You got to have business skills. You got to know your audience. You got to be able to. You got to have. If you're gonna make some money, you need to have attractive merch that people want, creative merch. You know, you gotta be able to get yourself out there. So you know, those are necessary. You know, like I said, 10 years ago, mic skills, wrestling skills, might get you like straight into the mid card somewhere. But today, that just gets you in the door. If that. There were at any given VPW show, or really a lot of your kind of major indie shows, there's 10 people sitting in the back that are fully capable of cutting a promo and having a good wrestling match. They're not booked on that card. So there it is.
Now we're going to enter our feature called the Hot Tag. So basically, we're going to name off 10 different names.
Maybe more than 10.
Maybe more?
Yeah.
Okay. You're going to throw a couple wild cards in there?
Yep.
All right. So I'm going to ask 5. Joe's going to ask 5 plus, apparently. So basically, it's not necessarily word association, but more the first thing comes to your mind. Like I say, it can be more than one word, but keep it kind of like a Twitter answer, 140 characters less, whatever it is now. So
Gotcha.
somewhere in there. So the first name I'm going to say to you is Owen Knight.
Oh man, that's my guy. I will proudly tell this to anyone. I've been on the Owen Knight bandwagon since like 2015, 2016. Years before, anybody was saying, "Oh man, you got to keep an eye on Owen Knight." And I will proudly tell anybody that. Even just 2 years ago, there were people saying like, "Well, what's Owen Knight done?" And then you look at it now; he's a Southern Honor champion. He's been booked solidly at Viral. He had a stellar match with Drew Adler last night. I mean, he's the guy.
I think working skill, just to jump on that, working skill is great for him. Also, just crowd interaction. He's really good with that, and that's something I'm always big on. Why I prefer indie wrestling over the large companies is the interaction you get with the wrestlers themselves. So he's always been real good about that. As a heel, yelling back and talking and stuff like that, and playing back and forth. So it's fun. All right,
I could talk for 2 hours about Owen, by the way. So separate interview.
Yeah.
And I can vouch for what he was saying. Before I was an Owen Knight believer, he was like, you got to trust me on this. This guy's got it. He's got it. And eventually, obviously, he became one of our sponsored athletes, so we bought in as well.
I got to add this. This is way over the Twitter limit, but the story I always tell about Owen Knight is we had the invasion, the PCW invasion, where we had their champions, Kevin Ray and Drew Adler, and they came in and they were getting Shawn Legacy. Darius Lockhart couldn't be there. Shawn Legacy's got to find a partner. And he goes for Owen Knight, the guy that, they don't like each other. Owen's like a big heel in the company.
Maybe the biggest heel.
At that time, he definitely was. And Owen comes out, says, I don't like you, but these guys aren't going to come into my house. I think the exact line he said, they're not going to come in my house and put their feet on my coffee table. So, he comes out, gets booed, says, I hate you, Legacy, but I'll team with you to get these guys out of here. Turns face. The crowd immediately buys it, and there's Let's Go Owen chants.
That was one of the biggest pops I've heard at an indie show ever.
Yeah.
Legitimately.
Turns face for the match. The crowd's 100% behind him. And then at the end, tells Legacy, I'm coming after that belt, goes back heel, and goes to the back. It's one of the most impressive things I've ever seen. And at that moment, I was like, I told everyone about this guy. And I mean, he just got it.
He made it work. He really did.
It's almost like they wanted to show for him all along.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And you saw last night, they did.
Yeah.
And what I say a few minutes ago, he's got that crowd right here.
Yeah.
Whatever he wants to do.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. They're going to buy it.
All right, so number 2, a guy that was on the card last night, and you just mentioned him earlier, Wade Adams.
Man, I have known Wade for a long time, actually. I mean, even back to when I was an active wrestler, Wade and I have had several matches against each other. I don't know if we had a lot of ring chemistry, but I've always liked Wade. And I've always had to kind of separate, like, professional from, like, personal with him. It's like, yeah, man, we're friends. And then it's like, no, I don't want to do your idea, But he's a great guy. He works really hard. He shows up to Viral, helps set up every single show. Huge thanks to him for that. And then he is really grown as like a creative person, and he has just the best like gimmick ideas. I mean, last night they did the Christmas brawl. He had some incredible designs for that. I really like the Christmas gimmick. I know that some people like the Canadian hockey gimmick a little bit more, but I think the Christmas all year gimmick is just gold. So I'm a huge fan of Wade Adams.
Number 3, Darius Lockhart.
That'd be another interview. That's number 35. I don't know what I can say more than I said earlier about him. I mean, I think that he could be on top anywhere, anytime. professionalism, athleticism, talent, incredible human being. The sky is the limit for him. He can go as far in this as he wants to go, and I hope he does.
Yeah, it's funny. I got to interject this. When we selected him as our very first sponsor athlete, the exact thing you just said is something I wrote on the back of the picture we gave him. I wrote, "The sky is the limit for you." And he still has that picture, I know, because he posted on Instagram. But I totally agree with you. He is the guy, and he can do anything he wants to do in this business or anywhere else, to be honest.
And I mean, when you think about too, longest reigning VPW champion by far. He was a champion. Everywhere that he went, he represented Viral Pro, even overseas. Yeah. And it was like, it's like that's who you want carrying your belts around. Absolutely. Because it's just like they see him, you want your company to be associated with this guy. Yeah. You want your stock to be on this guy.
You could tell he took a lot of pride in defending that title in England and other places. I mean,
right, and a leader in the locker room too, which is another thing I think a champion should be.
Absolutely.
And just a very professional appearance as well. The suits and everything, just looking sharp outside of the ring. I just think that's very important. That goes a long way.
I give him shit about that all the time. I'd be like, is that a custom tailored suit? He'd be like, no, I bought it off the shelf, and I'm like, they just make suits in Darius Lockhart's size?
They really do.
All right, the shirt that I'm wearing, the Unknown.
All right, well, we're going to skip over one of the people on that shirt. That's the original version.
Yeah.
Censored. Awesome concept, man. It kind of got pulled together at the last minute with some of the members. I mean, we always knew that we wanted Owen and Darius. And originally, Shawn Legacy was going to be in that group.
Really?
The original booking plan, but yeah, but the concept was like, I don't think the fans would have bought it.
I think the fans still want him as a face.
Right, they wouldn't have bought it. So
solo guy.
Exactly. So they wouldn't have bought it. I said they're not going to buy this. I make the joke all the time. This might be a little crude for this podcast, but I used to always make the joke like that Shawn could piss on that crowd and they would bottle it. And you can cut that out if you gotta. But
yes, we'll keep it in.
All right. I said they're not going to turn on him. I said so we have to turn Darius because Darius was a babyface champion at the time. And him and Owen were like bitter enemies. They had a series of 4 matches, just brutal fights over the VPW title. Yeah. And people weren't going to see it coming. And the turn, the night that he turned is got to be like top 5 moments in Viral for me. Just the reaction from that. I mean, his son was losing his mind. I looked right over at him because I knew he was such a huge fan at the time. And I remember looking over at him and just seeing his reaction. It was priceless. But I mean, pretty much everybody in that audience had a very similar reaction to that. And it was the same kind of concept. They had been cheering for Darius and wanted to continue to cheer for them, but he wasn't going to have it. So
yeah. So, and remind me, when did Darius join Unknown?
This was in June of, let's see, it was right before Infection 4. Because that Infection 4 was him and Shawn. So Shawn won the Garden City Classic and earned the title shot. And they both stayed babyface. And then Darius turned on him in June. And then they had the match in August for the title.
It was 2018
or 19?
I want to say 2019.
Okay. We're December 2021. You know what Landon, my son, still says about Darius?
What's that?
I give you a quote. Dad, he betrayed me. He still says that.
Took it personal.
Yep, betrayed me, not us, me.
and that's how that audience felt, and that just goes to that story. That is how that audience felt, and one of the brilliant things about how he played that, because I was always concerned about portraying his gimmick as a heel gimmick. Just because I did not want to do that, not straight up. So the way that he played it was, in his mind, he's doing the right thing. That's how the best villains are.
Right.
And in his mind, he's like, I'm not gonna allow Viral to be degraded by having this guy be the champion. I'm doing this for you guys. And the audience is like, no, you're not. And that we played it up where I was getting in his head and kind of feeding him this stuff. So. It kind of kept him, it kept him sort of the ability to come back and be a face in the future. But while he was doing it, the fans absolutely hated it, and he was able to keep that heat all the way up to the very end.
I like that the faction was a good mixture of people. I mean, you had different races, you had different genders in there, so it just gives a lot of options. So speaking of different genders, so that leads us to number 5. They have the Dream Girl Ellie.
One of the most unique people in the wrestling business. She's incredible. I mean, just you guys talked about their gear. Always very unique gear. She has a really unique way of adapting to her opponent. And just an absolute blast to have backstage. You can never tell if she's kidding or not. She can come up to you and be completely kidding and say something straight face to you and not even crack a smile or anything. So you have to watch her. I honestly, the big Battle Lines match we had, the 5-on-5 match, she wasn't feeling well that night. I mean, she looked like she was needed to be on bed rest sick. And I remember watching her go into the back, and she curled up under a heat lamp for 10 minutes, and then she was like, "I'm good," and then went out and had the match, and you couldn't tell.
Okay.
Craziest thing I've ever seen.
All right, moving on to number 6, Josh Hancock, your opponent last night, and the true owner of Viral Pro Wrestling.
Yeah, respect, man. I can't say, I'm not gonna sit here and say, hey, me and Josh get along really, really well, because that wouldn't be truthful.
Y'all bump heads sometimes.
We bump heads, and I feel like over time it's become we bump heads more. But I have nothing but respect for him on a different level after last night. He did a great job. He pulled his weight, and we put on a great performance. And I will say this: he has a better attention to detail than anyone in the business I know. I mean, we could put 600 people in that building, but the screen's crooked. He'd be like, "No, man, I saw it on the hard cam. The projector was crooked all night. Total loss." You know what I mean? And and that's something that Bob Keller will tell you too. He'll ask me, "Does this look good?" And I'll be like, "Bob, I can tell you, yeah, but you're gonna have to ask Josh." Because he just and it for me it is a source of more work and aggravation.
Right.
And there's so many times where I'm like, "Oh my God, Josh, just let it go." But that is one of the biggest strengths of Viral. Is Josh will look at something that maybe nobody's going to pick out and go, "That's not right." And to you, it's dude, nobody's going to notice that. But hey, you know what? When enough of those things build up, though, people start seeing the cracks. And that attention to detail, I think, has been a huge asset.
Well, and I'll say this, and you can tell me if this is accurate. Of all the time of me and Nate traveling South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, different shows, we hear stories about shady bookers and the carnies and things like that. Josh Hancock, I've never heard anything close to an accusation like that about him.
He's the most honest promoter in wrestling that I've ever met, to a fault. I mean, you will never hear any story anywhere about him not agreeing, him not holding up his end of a agreement. If he says you're going to get paid this, that's what you're going to get paid. He's just he's always done good business. He's always been willing to work with people. Like I said, most honest promoter in the game. Do you need a little bit of dishonesty as a promoter? Just a little bit? Probably. I mean, if you look at the most successful ones there's ever been. But integrity is really just a thing that he's got, and I've always appreciated that about Josh. And I'll tell anybody that in a heartbeat. He is probably the most honest guy in wrestling.
Okay. Number 7, referee for your match last night, Chris Wiggins.
The only person I'd have in there. I was like, hey, I'll do this, but we gotta have Wiggins in there. And I said earlier, he deserves just as much credit for that match as either one of the competitors. I really love what he's doing with the whole ref stash gimmick. I love that. I worked with him at Flatline. We butted heads a lot, but that was the strength of Flatline Pro's booking, and that's his own words too, is, it would take us 7-8 hours to book a show, and we weren't the only ones. But just focusing on Wiggins specifically, Wiggins had a set of ideas and I had a set of ideas, and we would trim stuff off until we had the kind of best of both worlds. and that was the magic of Flatline. You know, that was like the core of how the storytelling and the booking and everything was so good and so easy for people to follow. And I just think he's a true professional. I think he's as good a referee as you'll find on the Indies. I think he's better than some of the referees on TV.
Yeah. All right, number 8, Chris Main.
Oh man, so I have known Chris Main, Madeira.
I didn't know if you were going to drop the real name.
Yeah, with his cool ass real name. I ain't gonna drop the last name though. I got you. But yeah, I mean, you know, I've known him for a long time, man. Probably all the way back to 2005, 2006. He was in the business wrestling full time around the same time I was. I don't know how many interactions we ever had in the ring. We probably were in like some battle royals together or tagged against each other or something like that. But man, I think he's one of the best promos. You know, I don't want to say in the game because I don't think he's not really in the game right now.
Right.
But he is. You know, he's doing really well with his streaming gig. He does streaming on YouTube and probably some other places. Yeah. I dropped the handle, but they're not gonna know how to spell it. So. But yeah, he's doing really well with that stuff. I'm glad to see him succeed. He's a great guy. He had a little bit of a hand in booking Viral for a while. I think actually when I was out, he was helping with the booking. I'm not 100% sure on that because I was completely detached from it, but I'm pretty sure he was. And he did a really good job. I think he's got a great mind for the business. Whether he shows back up in it or not is up to him, but I think he'll be successful at whatever he wants to do. He's got the charisma and a good mind for it, so you know he can take those skills outside of wrestling and go anywhere he wants with them.
Yeah. Number 9, someone that was not there last night, the young professor.
No discredit to anybody else. When young professor told me in I think August that he wasn't going to be able to be there in December, I said, well, the good thing about that is I don't only know the best announcer, I know the number 2 and number 3 best announcers too. And no discredit to Jonathan Feltner, who did an amazing job last night. Even Feltner said Young Pro is the announcer of the year. I think he deserves, he is the announcer of the year.
Yeah.
We talked earlier about those awards. I don't give a shit about any of that. If you look at the hustle the guy's doing, you look at the paper he's making, you look at the sheer raw talent, he is an asset to any show, not just for the ring announcing. He looks at the details just like Josh Hancock. He looks at the little details. You got this guy at ringside. It looks like he doesn't want to be here. You can't have that. Everybody at ringside's got to be selling the action. Little details like that. He is an asset to any show he's on because he's trying to make the whole product better. He comes up to me all the time. He's like, guys, you have no idea how good your production is here. He's like, I wish way more places had even half the level of production this place has. I mean, he's just on it. And when it comes to like actual talent, charisma, and like actually doing the announcing gig, bar none, the best. I hope that he gets signed by like a major sports network or a wrestling company.
Yeah.
He does it all. I mean, he hosts trivia. He works for a baseball team down in Florida. I can't think of the name right
Tortugas?
now. Sure.
We'll go with that.
That's what it is now. They tell them they got to change their name. Sorry if that's not it.
I think that's it.
If it isn't, they got to change it. Sorry.
New hats.
And I've put him over in other interviews.
He's boxing, MMA.
Yeah.
He's announcing for those.
Yeah.
He's just an actor. I can see him hosting any event.
Yeah.
No matter what.
That guy hustles. So, I mean, he hustles more than anybody. I mean, you look at him and it's just, he is always somewhere. And, I mean, the sky's the limit. He's perfect at it. And also, the guy cannot be out-dripped in any scenario. He has a suit for everything.
No.
He wore 2 different suits in October. And they were both, like, the most fire thing I'd seen all day. I mean, the guy is one of the most stylish human beings out there. And he really knows how to play it.
I'd love to see him like host a game show or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Definitely do that.
Number 10, I'm gonna swap it up here. GCGC.
Man, the Garden City Grappling Crew. I mean, that includes you guys. I mean, that's a group that I was and am still honored to be a part of. We had pretty much full attendance last night. For the most part, I had the GCGC on my wrist tape.
Yep. I saw
along with the Flatline logo, because those are just probably two of the really important pillars of my career in wrestling. And yeah, I mean, it's just it's a great thing. It's been a fantastic kind of just journey, with you guys, going to different shows and talking about different things as far as indie wrestling, and just having a group with a lot of knowledge. It's helped me as a booker too, because pretty much everybody in that group travels to shows, and especially like Fran or Cubics, and it's very helpful to me for them to reach out to me and say, hey, I was at this show tonight, such and such, killed it, you should check them out.
Right.
Okay, well, I already know that at least one person that's going to be at Viral really likes this guy, so let me check him out. You got one fan in the audience already. That's more than most people start out with.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, that it's been helpful professionally, and then personally, it's just it was just it was an honor to represent in the cage last night. So even though Josh Hancock also had a GCGC logo on his trunks, so
yeah,
it was a win for them either way.
Right. Yeah, and he had our logo too, and our friend Gorgonist. He has some. Who did Justin handle that?
I don't think so.
I saw him posting about it. I think somebody else did it, but I think he might have coordinated it.
Because he messaged me about the logos, to send him the logos. So I think he had a hand in it.
I know they worked together on getting it done, but they had a third party make.
Yeah, actually, I didn't mean he actually put the logos on
Okay,
himself.
gotcha.
But yeah, the shorts look good. He looked legit last night for sure. I'm really, I don't even know if I want to mention this person's name. So,
Oh geez, I bet I know who it is.
why don't we jump down to someone that you've had?
No man, just do it for it. Yeah, go for it.
Stephen Platinum.
Fucking con man. 100% con man. Look, I'll put it out there. I don't hold it against him. If he wants to squeeze money out of people, by all means, let him do it, right? Here's the thing, man, and I'm about to go in on this. This is why you didn't want to mention it. All right, this is why you didn't want to mention it. You guys might not be welcome back in a certain promotion after this. Hope not, though. This is me, not them. So look, man, you got IWE. Okay, everybody I've talked to in the wrestling, I talked to a lot of people in the wrestling business. I talked to bookers, talent, promoters. Everybody sees it this way. You got IWE. They had their thing going. They brought in Stephen Platinum. So there now, you got two guys running this thing. Everybody already says they don't know what they're doing. So then they bring in Platinum, and now they pay for Platinum to take credit for all the wins they have. Let's say they were 70% misses and 30% hits. Just throwing that number out there. You still had the 30% hits. So now you're paying a guy to come in. Maybe he bumped you up to 40% hits. But he's taking credit for all of them. So it's like you're paying somebody to devalue your contributions to the business. And I don't know if they're doing it because they want to win awards. They talk to their crowd about those awards. I thought that was the biggest mistake they'd ever made. Saying, oh yeah, we're going to win these awards. Why would you introduce your audience to an award that you're not going to win?
Right.
And then you realize, oh hey, I did this. So now we really got to win one because I've told my audience that these things exist. We would never talk about any of that in front of the audience at Viral.
Right.
Or mention another promotion's name.
Right, yeah, or talk about other promotions. I think he may have called out Gary Lamb.
He said something about Southern Honor, yeah.
Nobody knew any of that stuff.
And now they do.
Yeah, now they do. So it's like, oh, I don't know who that is. I'm gonna go Google them and check them out. And I'm gonna tell you right now, if somebody went to Southern Honor that was at that show, they'd never go back to that show. That's just my opinion. So yeah, I think he's a con man, and I think that he is conning several people, and it's not working out for the people that he's conning at all. It's working out for him, but it just makes them look like buffoons. And so hey, they can go for it if they want to. I don't really know what they're getting out of it.
I understand. And our last one here, and I think there may be a story for this.
Fuck.
Let's talk about. I see you can read my paper from there, huh? Abyss.
All right, man. I'm gonna tell a story. I don't know. Oh, I don't want to get. All right. I've never told this story publicly, but a lot of people have heard it. So Abyss is actually, when we booked Abyss, that was actually the worst drawing crowd we'd ever had at Viral. Yeah. So you bring in a big name and they actually take fans away, I was a huge fan of his work when I was watching TNA and stuff. But I can't watch any of it now because I'm just like, I just had the worst experience with this guy. Like, out of all of the big names that we've ever brought in, or big talents we've ever worked with, he's by far the worst to deal with. I was on the phone. I drove from Atlanta to Thompson, which is about 2.5 hours. I was on the phone with him, the airline, whatever. He was trying to get his flight changed. So we had him a hotel room in Thompson. He was going to fly in, stay in the hotel, and he was going to fly back out. There was a big ice storm in North Carolina. He didn't want his flight to get delayed. Understandable at this point. So it's like, okay, so what we're going to do then, we'll get you another ticket out of Atlanta. We'll move your hotel room to Atlanta, and I'll drive you there because I'm going back to Atlanta anyway. And I said, well, look, since this is last minute, because it was the day before the show, and he's like, I'm not coming if you can't do this. So I'm like, well, we have to cancel your hotel. We have to cancel your flight. This is going to cost us more money to book you a hotel by the Atlanta airport and to get you the flight to Atlanta. So I said, look, will you come off of your rate to split the difference with us? I think it was like an extra $250 that it was going to cost us to change the accommodations we already had. So I said, split that with us. We'll take care of 125. Other 125 comes out of your fee. And he agreed to that. Now, doesn't matter how you feel about that scenario, but that's what was agreed to. That's what, that was the handshake deal.
Right.
And then, we take care of him. When he gets there, he's complaining about the fact that he doesn't have a hotel room, even though I discussed with him already that we had to move his hotel room to Atlanta. So when he gets to Augusta, or to Thompson, he's like, what do you mean I don't have a hotel room? Your hotel room's in Atlanta, where you insisted on flying out of. Okay? That's strike one. Strike two, when it comes time to pay him, he refuses the deal that he agreed to the day before. Wants the whole fee. Doesn't want to come off of the 125. Then, literally the most miserable person to be around I've ever been around in wrestling. Most everybody in wrestling is just at least, got some kind of conversation skills, whatever. I mean, this guy was literally like having Eeyore around all day. And I had to ride all the way back with him in the rain. It was like pouring down freezing rain that night. It's the longest drive back to Atlanta. Look, I've made that drive to and from Atlanta at least 400 times. It was the longest drive back to Atlanta I've ever had. And then he left trash in my car.
That's the exclamation point.
Yeah, who does that? You don't ride in a stranger's car for the first time and then you leave trash in there. You just don't do that. So yeah, man, I mean, he's by far the worst talent I've ever worked with. Would never work with him again in any capacity.
So there's a wrestler that left trash in my car, but I'm not going to name him right now. So that's the last one on the hot tag. Maybe when I get interviewed one day, I'll throw that guy under the bus.
That'd be fun.
He's on TV right now, though. That'll give you a hit.
He has blonde hair.
Narrowing it down here.
Yeah.
Ricky Morton left trash in your car?
No, Ricky would never do that.
I'm going to spit my drink over.
Before we jump into the 10 count, I've got two questions that are going to be difficult for you.
Okay.
Who's your favorite out of the two of us? Just kidding. That would not be difficult. I know who wins that one.
You right now have the power to pick your successor for booking at Viral. Who do you pick?
Tommy Thomas.
Okay, so that wasn't hard.
Nope. Nope. That's absolutely who I pick. He has a great mind. We've talked back and forth about storylines and angles and stuff. I think his mind for that environment would be fantastic. With me saying this, and the people that I know are going to watch it, they'll probably try to get him first. But but that if I just could pick right now, like name my successor, it would be him. I have a huge amount of respect for Tommy. Unfortunately, we haven't ever gotten to really work together, and we probably won't now. But if I could pick anybody to be my successor, it'd be him. He has an amazing mind.
Have you mentioned that?
Yeah, I gave a short list.
All right.
And I don't know if Josh is gonna. He's not under any obligation to consider that. It's his company. So.
Okay. So I have another question, and I hope I know the answer to this.
Okay.
Forgetting Viral and Flatline or anything you've had your hands in, what is, in your mind, your favorite indie show that you've been to?
Ooh, the first thing that came to mind was probably, and I think this is just because it's fresh, would have been the WrestleCade weekend. I mean, it's not Night of Champions, it's Showcase of Champions, was incredible, and then the Super Show the night after was not to overuse it, but on another level. But that was like a few weeks ago, so
it was like, and it was a Super Show.
It was. That was incredible. I was there for the infamous, Joe Black and William Huckabee match where they, used the car and they put them through the windshield and all that, and the ring was completely torn down. The ring crew had an easy job that night because they tore the whole ring down during the match. I was there for that. That's not something I'll forget. That was quite a spectacle. Legends of Wrestling put on some good events in Augusta, but I was involved with that, so I don't know if that counts to the parameters of your question.
Yeah, you're a little bit.
I got to take like 20,000 photos of Mick Foley that day because I was working his table,
hanging out with him and Bischoff.
Yeah, that was a very interesting day, but. Yeah, I mean, I'd have to say WrestleCade, man. I have nothing but respect for Tracy Myers and Brian Hawks that put that together. With AML Wrestling, they just absolutely killed it, man. So I can't recall a time at an indie show that I felt the way I felt there.
Gotcha. All right, so we're about to jump into the 10 count. The 10 count. We draw these questions, as you know, from like random things. They're not always about wrestling.
Okay.
We're going to kind of get into some of things that you like and don't like, and make you pick a few things that you maybe will struggle with.
Okay.
First up is I want you to pick a superpower.
Ability to heal others.
To heal others, not just yourself. Okay, that's interesting.
All right, so you want Wolverine, but be able to transfer that.
Yeah.
All right. Any more commentary on that?
No. I mean, I just think, I just think that'd be an incredible power to have. I mean, the Wolverine super healing, I don't know if I really want to have that, right? Because the thing people always forget about the Wolverine super healing, he feels all of that crap. So it's like he gets cut in half, right? Like if I get cut in half, I'm going to die shortly after that. But like he just heals back from it. And he gets hurt a lot, so I don't consider that to be a plus. But like the ability to like heal other people around you, like if you have somebody like sick or whatever that's important to you, and that's just something we all wish we could do.
Okay. All right.
Nobody likes to watch other people suffer.
Right. Who is the GOAT?
Shawn Michaels. You knew I was going to say that, but my mind hasn't changed on it. It's HBK. I mean, I think that there's other people in the discussion, but I think from bell to bell, I don't think there's anybody that can convey emotion, work a crowd, have the athleticism, the it factor. I mean, all the things we talked about earlier that make somebody a good, wrestler, performer, whatever. I think that Shawn has all those mixtures of all those different things in just the right combination, And my favorite match of all time, I hope that's not one of your questions, is him and Kurt Angle from WrestleMania 21. I just think that it is it's the perfect match. There were elements of our cage match last night from that match, because that match was this is a sports entertainer, a wrestler, versus a guy who's like an actual trained amateur athlete. We drew like some inspiration from that story, very similar story, as far as actually between the ropes. I mean, I could list tons of. I mean, he had a good match with Bill Goldberg, and I think there's only like 2 people who've ever done that. So yeah, I mean, he was.
Who's the other one? Hogan.
No, DDP, Halloween Havoc for the title.
I was there when Goldberg beat Hogan for a title in Atlanta.
That was probably amazing.
It was.
Yeah.
The freaking arena exploded.
Yeah, I mean, what was that? Like 90,000 or something like that? Some insane amount of people.
I don't know.
It's Georgia Dome, wasn't it?
I believe it was Georgia Dome.
It was a sold out Georgia Dome.
I was there with Jason Wright. But anyway.
The attendance record for the Georgia Dome.
Yeah. Moving on. Number 3. What is your current road trip playlist? We were just talking about Lil Nas X earlier.
Yep, I got some Lil Nas X on there. I got a lot of the League of Legends soundtrack on there. I don't like League of Legends, but the soundtrack is incredible. They have a show on Netflix right now called Arcane. It's very good. You don't have to know anything about the game to enjoy it.
You're not playing the Yellowstone soundtrack?
No, actually, I don't like any of the music on Yellowstone. Some of it's not too awful.
Joe doesn't either.
I hate stadium country. Like, I listen to all different genres, but that's not one of them. It's just the most like pandering nonsense out there. I hate it. They just, they just take like beer, tractor, my girl, blue jeans, and they just make a song out of those. Yeah.
Stirred up.
And you just put those in different combinations, and it's disgusting. I like older country though, like Johnny Cash. So
pre-90s.
Yeah, like Garth Brooks is the cutoff. Like Garth Brooks is the last country artist. They don't make any more country music after that.
So for me, 90s country was the best as far as like Garth.
They haven't made any good
George
music
Strait.
since the 90s. So I mean, just in general.
Yeah, it real pop after that.
I can't get on board with that. Let's see what else is on the travel playlist right now. I listen to a lot of podcasts. This one included. I listen to a lot of Superhero Homies. Gotta give a shout out to them.
Love those guys. Yeah.
Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast. I listen to a lot of 83 Weeks. That's Eric Bischoff's podcast. Just recently got into Grilling with JR.
Have you gotten to Jeff Jarrett's podcast at all?
I haven't. I listened a little bit of Kurt Angle's.
Okay.
We actually reviewed the episode of that where he had Samoa Joe on my podcast, an Involved Review. Shameless plug. I listened to a lot of that. There's other stuff on my music playlist, but for some reason I just can't think of it right now because I'm mainly a podcast audiobook person because I'm usually on long trips.
Yeah, you do ride a lot, so I knew you had to have something backed up, ready to go at all times.
Yeah.
Number 4, DC or Marvel, and why is it Marvel?
Are we talking overall? Just overall?
Overall, and we can break it down.
I mean, right now, present day, it's Marvel, live action movies, Marvel, animated Marvel, and comics Marvel. A few years ago, it would have been live action Marvel, animated movies DC, and then probably comics half and half. But Marvel is just killing it in all aspects right now. I mean, there's a lot of misses in like modern comics. Yeah, like there's a lot of misses in modern comics. But I mean, I will put What If, the Disney Plus What If, against anything animated that DC has done. They've really dropped the ball in their animated stuff. But their animated movies used to be really incredible, good.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, you actually showed me a few that I needed to watch, and they were really good. But that kind of goes back to what I keep saying, man. DC is hard to actually produce as live action because it's so cartoonish.
Yeah, I agree.
That's the disconnect.
I mean, my favorite comics character of all time is still Nightwing. Dick Grayson. I love him as Robin and as Nightwing. But that can't carry the whole franchise for me. A lot of their stuff, I'm just not into it. And then, a lot of times Marvel will do something very similar to DC. And even if DC came up with it first, the Marvel version's better, you know.
Right. All right, so I haven't even chosen what I'm gonna do here. So we're going to lose one, and let me think about it here for a second. So in this question, with this question here, if you lose it, you've never been able to see it, do it, have it, whatever.
So I don't know about it at all. It's deleted from time.
It's deleted. You have no ability to know what this is whatsoever.
So I can't miss it.
If I say Denzel Washington and that's Brad Pitt, right? So if I say one of those is gone, every movie they've ever been in is gone.
But do I remember that they exist? Like, no, I missed it?
It's gone.
I don't miss it at all. Okay,
it did not
never
exist.
existed. Cool.
So, Dragon Con and just indie wrestling in general.
I'm sorry, indie wrestling. Dragon Con is life. Wait, does Dragon Con wrestling still exist?
Dragon Con
wrestling. Because that's both.
Dragon Con wrestling can exist in what it is, but there is no connection there. It's not like, oh, I saw that guy at this indie show.
Yeah, because
that's
the only wrestling show.
You just threw a bunch of guys in there and you've never seen them before, and you may see them next year at Dragon Con.
I'm keeping Dragon Con.
Really?
Yeah, I'm keeping Dragon Con. Like, here's the thing, man.
Too many genres.
I was out of indie wrestling for 18 months, and I was out of Dragon Con for 18 months. And when indie wrestling came back, I liked it less than when I left. And when I went back to Dragon Con this year, I mean, I literally almost like produced tears stepping back into it because I just being away from it for that long. It was so important to me to be back there. And yeah, I can't. Like today, right now, sorry, indie wrestling, you're done.
Wow. All right, Nate.
Okay. Number 6. What was your first car?
My first car was a Ford Escort that I paid $300 for. And I drove it until the transmission literally fell out of it while I was going 80 miles an hour down I-20. And that is the epitome of the word alarmed.
Imagine so.
Yeah, I mean, I the car just like lost all power or whatever, and I get out and there's just like transmission fluid like all through, and I look under there and like the transmission pan is just kind of like hanging off of it, and it's like down like this, and yeah, I ended up. I paid $300 for it. I got, I think, maybe 20,000 miles out of it. So I mean, you do the math on that. I mean, it's a pretty good deal. And then I sold it to like a scrapyard or something. I think I got like another $200 back on it. So I made out good on the deal. But that car was an absolute piece of trash.
So $100 rental for 20,000 miles, basically.
Yeah, man. I mean, you can't beat that.
No.
Number 7. What is your go-to cookout order? We like cookout because it has so many different options for sides and stuff. So what's your go-to?
Cajun fries, double quesadilla.
Okay.
Peanut butter shake. And a piece of cheesecake with peanut butter on it.
So I never had their cheesecake.
Yeah, they will put peanut butter on the piece of cheesecake for you. It's
just like a scoop?
Yeah, well, they just put the peanut butter on there. And that's the only place I know of, just off the top of my head, that will do that, especially with a drive-thru, So yeah, go there, get a piece of their New York cheesecake, ask for peanut butter on it. They'll put that peanut butter right on there for you, and it is delicious. As a matter of fact, since I can eat whatever I want now, I might get a piece of that on the way home.
You'll pass it going to the interstate.
Yeah, I will.
Just turn right here.
Exactly. Yeah, I really want some now.
Number 8, dream match, dead and alive, or a dream booking, since you go to the booker aspect or you go to the wrestling aspect. Who would you like to wrestle?
Who would I like to wrestle?
Well, first. Let's do that first.
Yeah, first. Who'd you like to wrestle, dead and alive?
If I was in shape, I mean, I gotta say Sean, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, in his prime.
Sure.
Dead, the first person that comes to mind is Chris Benoit, but I'm like, man, I really don't want to wrestle Chris Benoit. You know what I mean? Like, he was tough and very snug in the ring, and I don't know if I could have ever at any point in my life kept up with that. Mm-hmm. Although I loved watching him wrestle. So I'm gonna say Sean alive. Dead. Let's see. I feel like it's a cliche answer, but I'm not going anywhere else. I gotta say Eddie. Yeah. And that's the match too, is the two of them. Like they never got to wrestle, and I think they would have killed it.
So that'd be your entry for the booking as well? You'll book them two together?
I would book the two of them together for one of the greatest matches of all time, I'm sure. Because, I mean, they were just, they're incredible.
Any stipulations, any gimmicks, or just straight up?
Oh yeah, ladder match between the two of them.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and here's the thing, man, is like both of those guys had the ability to make any match work. I mean, you look at Shawn. How many matches did Shawn innovate? Right, the ladder match. He didn't invent that, but he perfected it.
Yeah.
And then you look at not just the ladder match, but the first Iron Man match. Even though I feel like the Iron Man match really shouldn't. I feel like that's the only one that ever should have happened. More on that later. But you got the Hell in a Cell. Undertaker, of course, deserves as much credit for that too. He was in the first Elimination Chamber. I mean, there's just all these matches where Shawn had a big part in making them what they are, and there's not a lot of people you can say that for. So, and then Eddie could do anything.
Yeah.
So.
All right, so a popular thing to do after wrestling shows is go to Waffle House.
Did it last night.
Right? See? So let's just imagine that 4 people came up to you at a Waffle House and said, hey, I challenge you and 3 indie wrestlers of your choice to go outside and fight the 4 of us, street fight. Who'd you pick? 3 indie wrestlers. Have your back in the street fight.
James Drake, John Davis. It's got to be indie wrestler?
Yes.
Okay, so I keep James Drake, John Davis. Let's see. And I'm going to go Anthony Henry. Yeah.
It's a good group.
Because at least if the fight goes long, he'll be the last person tired. Like, nobody will be tired. Or everybody else will be tired out, and he'll still be going. So, but I have a feeling that with John Davis there, the fight ain't going to go long. So.
Right.
Not if he gets his hands on somebody.
Yeah, man.
All right, number 10, last question of the 10 count. If you could change, this is a genie in the bottle question, if you could change one thing in the pro wrestling business, what would it be?
Oh, man. I would make all of the talent much more. I would give them the intuition to know when they're being worked. Because I've said this before, like the people being worked in wrestling today aren't the fans. Like the fans, it's popular in wrestling to call them the marks because that's what they started out as. Like, hey, we're gonna sell them on this fight. It started out being this carny act where you'd have the strong man in there and you'd have a couple plants in the crowd. And you say, all right, well, let's take bets on can he beat up this guy? You have the guy come in, strong guy destroys him. You have another guy come in, strong guy destroys him. And crowd bets more and more money on the big strong guy. And then you have another plant come in and he beats the strong guy. David versus Goliath out of nowhere. You take everybody's money, all those guys are in on it, and you divvy it up. Mm-hmm. That's how wrestling started. But today, the workers are being worked.
About the promoters, you think?
Not just promoters. Promoters, influencers, anybody looking to make a buck on the business. But yeah, I mean, there are promoters and bookers doing it too, but I think a lot of it is just constructs people buy into. PWI 500 is a work. It's a worked list. Mm-hmm. Every single indie wrestler on your Facebook, if they're in there, they post about it. Mm-hmm. And it's good to be recognized, but it's a worked list, So yeah, I mean that's just one example, and I'm not bashing anybody for doing it, but it's just like you can't buy into these constructs that don't really do anything for you ultimately. We talked about the GWH awards earlier. People take that way too seriously. It's like if you want to know if you're the best such and such in Georgia, look at your wallet. So yeah, I would say that would be what I would do is I would make them a little more aware to when they are being worked, because there's a lot of that going around. The fans know what they're buying. They're buying a stage product and they know it. And 99% of them in 2021, they know what they're buying. But I think in a lot of cases, the people who are being worked the most is the talent. So I would change that for sure.
You can go ahead and ask now.
Okay, so you resigned as of 13 hours ago. That's where we're at now. What's next for Caleb Kitchens?
I'm not gonna say I'm leaving wrestling because I'd be right back, right? If I just said, I'm out of the wrestling business. I've tried it twice before. It's never gonna work. I have too much to offer it. and I enjoy it, and I know a lot about it. So, you know, and plus, man, I have so many friends and people like that in the business. I mean, so many people that I want to see succeed and help them to succeed if I can. So, yeah, I mean, I would love to stay in the business in some capacity. I don't know what that capacity is going to be yet. I know that for now, I'll still be helping the production team at Viral for a while. You know, and I don't know what I might get into next. For right now, I really want to write a book that won't be about wrestling. I would really love to get published. That's like a goal of mine. I don't want to wait till I'm 60 to start doing it. So my goal this year is to get at least a rough draft that's ready to be turned over to an editor, completed. When I say this year, I mean next year, 2022. Sure. And so yeah, that time's got to come from somewhere. So that contributes to kind of why I'm stepping away from the booking.
Okay, so 2 follow-ups on what you just said. So you're involved in production still, just for clarification. Is that live production only, or are you also doing videos and that kind of thing?
Probably live production only, yeah. So it'll be just the production team at the shows. So I'm not going to be involved beyond that.
Okay. And then, so the book, was that just like your life story, or is it fiction?
No, it'll be fiction.
Okay.
It'll probably be either like fantasy or sci-fi type deal. I've always loved writing. I've always wanted to write. I read a lot. I read fiction and nonfiction, but if I'm going to write something, it'll probably be fiction. I don't know, man. I guess to some people, my life story might be interesting enough for a book, but I don't want to write about that. At least not for a long time. I mean, if I started writing and I got published and became like an author for like my job, I would do it. But I don't know. That sounds stressful. I'm one of those people where if I do something for work, like it's my main source of income, I'm gonna hate it. It doesn't matter what it is. So I don't feel like I'd want to do it anymore.
Right.
But yeah, it'll probably be like in the fantasy sci-fi realm for sure.
All right, so we're wrapping up now. So unless you have something else, Joe, to add to it, or no? So where can people find you on social media if they want to stay in touch with you, since they'll be able to see you as much anymore?
So I'm on Facebook under James Caleb Kitchens. If somebody's just like a fan and doesn't have any involvement in the wrestling business, probably not going to accept your friend request. Sorry. I'm on Twitter at ET_JCK, which is my initials. So you can follow me on there.
What's the ET stand for?
That is a long story that we cannot get into.
Running out of tape.
It is a very intricate story, and if I told it, you'd be like, cool, well, moving on. I don't really do TikTok or anything like that, so those are really the best places to probably find me. You can check out, if you've liked listening to my voice, you can check out An Involved Review. We're on everywhere that podcasts can be found. We're on YouTube and Facebook for the video stream. The audio, like I said, we're on Spotify and pretty much everything else. You can definitely check us out on there. We talk about Dark Side of the Ring a lot. We even do some stuff that's like outside of wrestling. We talked about Disney Plus Day recently. We're going to talk about WrestleCade coming up. We've got we're going to do the top 10 sins of Vince McMahon. That's an upcoming episode that we have. Yeah, so if you've watched this far, you probably like listening to me talk. So you can check that out and get those viewership numbers up.
Very good deal. So we can be found on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram at Suplexes Mics. So, but odds are if you found us, then you probably already know that. So, but anything else you want to say, Joe?
That's it. You got anything else? Any final shots there you want to fire off?
No, man.
Left in the gun?
No, man. I just, I was honest today, and a lot of it, is my opinion. Everybody's entitled to one of those. So take it or leave it. There's a lot of facts in there too, but I really want to thank you guys for having me on. A lot of respect for you guys. I waited a long time to be right here. This whole thing was a ruse just to get on the show. No, I'm just kidding. I'm looking forward to what's next, and I really appreciate you guys having me here. Like and follow these guys everywhere you can. Like and follow people because they put in a lot of work, and they do a really great job with this show. So thanks for having me, guys.
That's a wrap.
That's right. Number 33. Thanks for watching.